The alien monster lifts the child in its hand. It opens its huge mouth and devours the child. However, in the next second, it starts convulsing. Surprisingly, it splits into a second monster. This is the Japanese horror film. It's in the woods, in the middle of Fukushima Prefecture. There is a forest called Tengen. On this day, 2 robbers flee to this place. They dig a hole to bury their loot. The man steps aside to relieve himself. Unexpectedly, his shoe touches a strange sticky substance. When the woman finishes burying the money, her male accomplice is nowhere to be found. At this moment, there is a roar from the bushes. She nervously grabs a shovel for self-defense. In the next second, an arm flies towards her. Terrified, the woman turns and runs away. She keeps running until she reaches the edge of the forest, but the monster follows. Meanwhile, the male protagonist, Junichi, lives in Fukushima Prefecture. His wife is the only daughter of a wealthy company owner. Although Junichi excels at work, he was driven out by his father-in-law. Due to his poor background, he returns to Fukushima and makes a living by growing oranges with his friends. The oranges are thriving this year, but some of them have been affected by ulcer disease. They must be pruned and burned. In the afternoon, Junichi's son, Kazuya, arrives in Fukushima. He had an argument with his mother over his grades and decided to temporarily stay in the countryside. He temporarily transfers his school here, and when his classmates hear that Kazuya is from Tokyo, they can't help but gossip. Nevertheless, Kazuya quickly finds friends. Due to his impressive soccer skills, he starts playing with the goalkeeper Leo. At Fukushima Elementary School, as long as you play soccer well, you'll be popular. After school, he takes Kazuya to a secret base. The two of them enter Tengen Forest. They pass by the place where the man and woman were attacked. Leo walks a few more meters. Finally, they arrive at their secret base. Whenever his parents argue, he seeks refuge here. After they finish playing, they take a shortcut to leave. Unexpectedly, they come across a strange machine on the way. They approach and observe it closely. Suddenly, the crows above them start cawing incessantly. They become anxious due to the cawing. They quickly run towards the edge of the forest. The next day, Leo boasts about his forest adventures in class, while the boys from the soccer team don't believe him. Both groups agree. As long as Leo can prove that there is a silver machine in the forest, they will accept Kazuya as part of their class. So, after school, Leo and Kazuya enter the forest again. They want to take photos as evidence, but the machine from yesterday is mysteriously gone. Unwilling to give up, Leo searches around. As darkness falls, they start to feel afraid. Just as they are about to leave, they see a dark figure darting through the forest. Leo quickly takes out his phone and snaps a photo. Then, he desperately runs away with Kazuya. Due to his heavy build, he was quickly caught by the monster. Kazuya, seeing his friend in danger, wanted to go back and seek help from adults. Unfortunately, he accidentally tripped and rolled several times, becoming dizzy in the forest. Junichi waited for his son to come home, but couldn't reach him on his phone. Luckily, the homeroom teacher arrived in time and explained that Kazuya and Leo had made a bet with their classmates during the day that they would go to Tengen Forest to find a big machine. Junichi contacted his wife and obtained the password to track Kazuya's phone location. He went to Tengen Forest with the homeroom teacher to search for them. With the help of the tracking, they quickly found Kazuya unconscious, but Leo was still missing. The villagers voluntarily went up the mountain to search for them, and Junichi unintentionally stumbled upon the stolen money. He was startled to see a whole bag of money. At that moment, crows' cries came from ahead. Junichi followed the sound and moved forward. To his surprise, he found them pecking at the corpse of a robber. Junichi glanced aside and noticed a large circular pit ahead. This should be the trace left by that machine. Junichi and the homeroom teacher quickly called the police. Soon after, the police found the body of a female criminal and quickly identified the deceased. The police believed it was the work of a wild bear, yet the exact results would have to wait for the autopsy report. Meanwhile, the police found glass-like material in the large pit. This kind of material forms only when rocks are dissolved at extremely high temperatures. However, the forest doesn't have such conditions. Just as they were puzzled, the search team found Leo's shoes, but there was no other discovery. When Junichi returned home, his son had already woken up, but he insisted on not remembering what happened in the forest. Although everyone is anxious, there is no way to force Kazuya to remember. One evening, Junichi noticed that the greenhouse door was open, and he was afraid there might be a thief, so he quickly went to check. There was nothing in the orange grove. Just as Junichi was about to leave, he caught sight of a monster outside the greenhouse. He ran out to search, but the creature disappeared. On the other side of the village, the little girl Mayu was studying at home. Suddenly, she heard a strange sound, and went to investigate by opening the door. She was also abducted by the monster. The police and villagers quickly arrived at the scene, where they found several large footprints on the ground. Everyone speculated that it must have been the work of a bear, with frequent incidents involving victims. The media paid close attention to the Fukushima bear attacks. The mayor stated that a thorough search of Tenjin Forest would be conducted starting from 9 a.m. to eliminate the bears in the forest. Shortly after, the bear in the forest was hunted down, and a forensic doctor dissects its stomach to examine the contents, so that they can confirm whether Mayu and Leo are killed by the bear. However, only trees and fruits were found inside, and there was no trace of human remains. The bears in Tenjin Forest did not attack humans. Mayu's mother was restless, and the adults were extremely worried. Taking advantage of the situation, Kazuya slipped into the forest once again. Junichi located his son through GPS, and quickly followed him. Fortunately, Kazuya was safe, and Junichi blamed him, asking why he would take such a risk to come to the forest. Kazuya threw himself into Junichi's arms, crying, as the weight of his secret almost overwhelmed him. He finally confessed to his father that Leo was taken away by a monster. Junichi, considering the recent strange occurrences, didn't refute his son's statement. The notion of a monster wouldn't convince the police. At that moment, Kazuya suddenly explained that Leo's phone seemed to have captured a photo of the monster. He went up the mountain to find the phone, but the search team didn't find anything. Junichi wondered what a little kid could achieve, so he decided to go to the forest. He specifically searched through leaf piles on the ground, and unexpectedly found the phone. Junichi turned on the phone, and the screen was still on the photo of the monster. Crows circled overhead, cawing incessantly, as if warning Junichi that a disaster was imminent. He hurriedly returned home with the phone, while strange noises came from the orange's greenhouse. Junichi asked his son to go inside, while he went alone to the greenhouse to assess the situation. This time, he finally came face to face with the monsters, and there was more than one. The monster approached, about to strike, but it was burned by Orange's fruit, and hastily left the greenhouse. Meanwhile, a mother and daughter were driving past the forest, engrossed in conversation, when the monster leaped onto the road. The mother quickly hit the brakes to stop the car. The monster's range of movement gradually expanded. The next day, many residents joined the volunteer search team to continue looking for the missing children. Junichi took the photos to report the case, but the police refused to believe him. They even suggested the photos might be fabricated. Even if the creature in the pictures was the culprit, it was likely a person in disguise. The police promised to pay more attention, but their attitude was not serious, and they even kicked Junichi out of the police station. He could only go back and investigate on his own. Junichi searched online, and discovered that 60 years ago, 3 children also went to Tenjin Forest to play, but 2 of them mysteriously disappeared, and have remained missing. He realized that the current situation was extremely serious, and that he could only seek help from the homeroom teacher. He wanted to find the survivor from that time, and ask them for detailed information. The 2 of them quickly went to the homeroom teacher's residence, and briefly explained their purpose, hoping that he could provide some helpful clues. The old man led the 2 of them into his office, which was filled with documents. It was evident that the survivor had been investigating this matter all along, and had a large collection of files. Junichi and the homeroom teacher found a similar circular pit. In the photos from 60 years ago, the old man said that it was a trace left by a UFO. He got separated from his companions back then. Wandering alone in Tenjin Forest, he heard his companions' cries for help. He witnessed them being captured by the monster, and taken into a pear-shaped spacecraft. Afterward, the object ascended into the sky, but no adults believed the children's words. Junichi was certain that the monster from 60 years ago had returned to Fukushima Prefecture. But why did they kill adults on the spot, and only abduct children? Just then, news came from the police station that another family of 4 had met with an accident. The parents died instantly, and the 2 children were missing. Junichi's wife heard the recent news, and immediately rushed to Fukushima Prefecture, but Kazuya firmly refused to return to Tokyo. At this time, the children in the class wanted to enter Tenjin Forest to search for their classmates. Kazuya could only shout loudly to stop them, saying that the one who captured Leo was not human, and presented the photo as evidence. Upon seeing this, the children started to argue, and told the homeroom teacher inform the police immediately. Their world was very innocent, and they believed that the police would believe them. Since there was a photo, the homeroom teacher had no choice but to go find the head teacher. However, the headmaster didn't believe the children's words either, and mentioned that the police had issued a notice stating that no child could leave the school until the culprit was captured. On the other hand, Junichi and his wife entered the orange's greenhouse to collect the monster's residue. They prepared to hand it over to the university biology teacher for analysis. As long as they could prove that it was not something from Earth, the police would surely believe what they said. At this moment, the survivor called. Since Junichi left, he has been thinking at home. He couldn't help but think of a possibility. Since the monsters attacking Junichi had different body sizes, could they increase their size by preying on children? Because children have a growth plate in their bodies, which promotes skeletal development and growth. That's why only adults were killed, while all the children went missing. And under the survivor's thorough questioning, Junichi realized, on the day he encountered attack, the monsters were scared away by infected oranges. Perhaps they were afraid of the bacteria in them. Junichi immediately squeezed the juice to make weapons. The alien monsters also took action. The UFO projected energy waves into the sky. In an instant, several currents hit the overhead power lines. The entire Fukushima prefecture plunged into darkness. All the police officers searching in the forest perished. Junichi worried about his son. He immediately took his homemade weapons and set off. The teacher was anxious. Because of the power outage at the school, Teacher Tanuma wanted to go ask the police at the entrance. Yet, the monsters had already arrived outside the school. Several police officers were killed one after another. Tanuma saw the monsters. She immediately ran back to the office to inform others. Everyone looked out the window. Several monsters were approaching the school building. The homeroom teacher was the first to react. She planned to hide with the children. She led everyone to escape. The scene was extremely chaotic. Among them, a little boy named Koji. Actually, he was holding a broomstick, intending to duel with the monsters. Kanzuya couldn't stop him. He could only watch as Koji ran upstairs. The homeroom teacher didn't notice anything unusual. She pulled Kanzuya and ran to the door. At the end of the corridor, the head teacher instructed her to lock the door, and went to check the opposite side. Unexpectedly, the next moment, the head teacher was stabbed to death by the monster. The homeroom teacher didn't have time to grieve. She took the children and hid in the basement. Then she blocked the door with a cabinet. Poor Kanzuya. Only at this moment did Kanzuya tell the homeroom teacher that Koji was still outside, but the monster had already reached the door. The homeroom teacher couldn't go out. Kanzuya took the opportunity to climb up the back window and returned to the first floor using the ladder, planning to help the isolated Koji. However, the other party had already been caught by the monster and taken to the Tengen forest. While the monster was getting closer to the basement, it lightly tapped on the iron door, and then it started to pound. The homeroom teacher and other teachers held against the cabinet. Meanwhile, Junichi finally arrived at the scene. He heard his son calling for Koji, and rushed towards the source of the sound. Kanzuya chased the monster into the forest. The monster was standing in front of the spaceship. It lifted Koji high, then it opened its big mouth, preparing to eat. Kanzuya picked up a wooden stick and attacked, but the monster still swallowed Koji. After eating the child, it unexpectedly started to split. It turned into two. It turned out that the monsters grew by devouring children, and they could split and reproduce to expand their numbers. Kanzuya was in a dangerous situation. Fortunately, Junichi arrived in time. He took the stick wrapped in orange's juice and stabbed the two monsters separately. Sure enough, they fell to the ground. Junichi pulled his son and escaped. The injured monster was still chasing them from behind. Kanzuya brought his dad to Leo's secret base, because there were bear traps set up there. The monster didn't notice for a moment, and indeed fell into the pit. Kanzuya happily went forward to check, but he was grabbed by the monster. Just as the monster was about to open its huge mouth, Junichi quickly hugged his son. They both fell into the monster's stomach. Nevertheless, Junichi had orange's juice on him. The monster convulsed a few times and fell to the ground. Junichi cut open the monster's belly and carried his son out. Fortunately, Kanzuya was unharmed. The monster inside the school is about to break through the iron door. The homeroom teacher grabs a weapon to resist, swearing to protect the children with her life. She desperately blocks the breach, but she is suddenly grabbed by the monster. In a critical moment, the spaceship emits a burst of red light. The monster suddenly releases the homeroom teacher and turns around, leaving the school. Then the spaceship takes off with all the aliens, leaving Tengen Forest. Most likely, they were afraid of the bacteria from the juice spreading. That's why they urgently escaped. In the blink of an eye. It's a month later. The school has returned to tranquility. Kanzuya plans to stay in Fukushima Prefecture. Junichi hopes that his wife can come and live together. She plans to handle the company's affairs, and then resign to be with her husband and child. The film ends here. The story is set in Fukushima, where a nuclear leak occurs. One would think the monster is related to nuclear contamination, but unexpectedly, the film quickly reveals it's an alien invasion. This undermines the horror atmosphere, and wastes the suspenseful buildup in the earlier part. Of course, the most disappointing part is the handling of the ending, not to mention the fact that the monster wasn't eliminated at all. It could come back at any time. If you like my channel, please give me a subscribe.